Hey guys, so as promised, here is the study guide video. Now I will warn you, it will probably be a little lengthy, so feel free to just watch this over several days, or if you want to watch it all in one day, that is perfectly fine. But you can pause it as you see fit and take a second to just write things down as we go. So number one, I'm actually going to skip because all of these words are in your notes. You can just look in your notes for the definitions, and it will tell you exactly what it is. So producer, plant; consumer, animal; decomposer, eats dead things, and so on and so on. I'm not going to go through all of them, but they are in your notes. So number two, what is the second criteria of life? So this is talking about the 7 characteristics of life. And we talked about cells last module. So cells would have been one of the first criteria of life. And this module, we're talking about how you have to have energy to survive. So that is going to be our second criteria of life that we're covering. So energy is the answer to number 2. Number 3, from where does the energy in most living organisms ultimately originate? From the sun, because every single thing that we eat, whether it is a plant or an animal that eats a plant, they get their energy from the sun. So the plant does photosynthesis, and then we can eat plants, of course, like fruits and vegetables. And then when we eat cows and chickens and pigs, cows, chickens, and pigs eat those plants. So then the energy transfers to them and then transfers to us. But all energy originates from the sun because it's one big food chain. Number 4, what process do producers use to make their own food? That is photosynthesis, because remember, producers are plants. Number 5, what is the product of the process listed in number 4 that plants use for food? So they make glucose first, but then when there is extra, it can get stored as starch. So that answers the second question. And then the third question, where is that starch stored? It's stored in the seeds of the plant. So when you're eating fruits and vegetables, if you eat the seeds, you are getting a good amount of starch in those seeds. Be able to recognize various living organisms as either producers, consumers, or decomposers. So again, producers are plants, consumers are animals or insects. Decomposers are going to be smaller things that eat dead organisms. So bacteria, fungi, things like that. And then remember, the detritivores are the larger organisms that eat dead things, so like earthworms and termites. If they are a consumer, you're also going to have to label them as either a herbivore, a carnivore, or omnivore. So you're going to be given a picture of different organisms, for example, a picture of a cow, and you'll have to write herbivore underneath it. Herbivores, remember, are plant eaters, carnivores are meat eaters, and omnivores eat both plants and meat. Number 7, what is the name of the chemical process that converts food to energy? That is combustion. So it's one of the many processes that we do during digestion to help us get energy from the food we are consuming. Number 8, what does the process listed in number 7 require for it to happen? It requires oxygen. And this is where my handwriting gets a little hard to read, so I apologize in advance, guys. But feel free to zoom in as needed. Number 9, list the 3 things that our body can burn effectively for energy. That is the carbohydrates, the fats, or also known as the lipids, and protein. So remember, those are the 3 macronutrients that we get anytime we eat food. Number 10, what are those three things called? Macromolecules or macronutrients. They have two different names, but they mean the same meaning. Number 10, again, I apologize for my horrible handwriting. I tried to fit it all on here. I'm sorry, number 11, list the three types of carbohydrates from smallest to largest. So you have the monosaccharide, the disaccharide, and the polysaccharide. So the monosaccharide is one sugar, disaccharide is two sugars, and polysaccharide is many sugars. Number 12, what carbohydrate is also known as a simple carbohydrate? So that would be the monosaccharide because it's just one sugar. So it's very simple. And then where it says give two examples of this carbohydrate, these examples are from your notes. Glucose and fructose. Glucose is what all plants make during photosynthesis. Fructose is a natural sugar that is found in your fruits. Number 13, what carbohydrate is formed when two monosaccharides are linked together? So then you have a disaccharide. Remember, di means two. So disaccharide is two sugars or two monosaccharides that have come together. Give an example of this carbohydrate. So this would be sucrose. That is the scientific name. How we know it is just plain old table sugar. Number 14, what carbohydrate is formed when many monosaccharides are linked together? So notice how I underlined some keywords here in number 13 and 14. Many means polysaccharide. So when you have lots of sugars bonded together, you have a polysaccharide. And an example of that from your notes would be starch. Number 15, lists two types of fats discussed in class. Which fat is solid at room temperature? Solid is saturated. So you can remember this by thinking of solid, it starts with letter S. Saturated also starts with letter S. So solid is saturated fat. A liquid at room temperature is unsaturated. So you can remember this by knowing that a solid and liquid are opposites of each other. So then if you know that solid is saturated, well, the opposite of saturated would be unsaturated. Number 16, not all fats are bad. Explain why it is important that we have healthy fats in our diet. So it is important to have fat in your diet for insulation and energy storage. So it would be long-term energy storage. So if our body ever went into starvation mode, then we would have to use that fat to stay alive. And then insulation is to keep our internal organs safe and also warm. So fat is important to have. Number 16, I was reading the second question, number 16. What nutrients can only be stored in our fat reserves? So this would be vitamins. Vitamins, if you remember, is a micronutrient, so it is very small, but they do get stored in your fat reserves. How are proteins formed? So proteins are amino acids that form a big long chain, so they're bonded together. Okay. And moving on to the back side here. Number 18, we did not talk about the details of the 9 amino acids. So all you have to know with the 9 amino acids is that they are essential amino acids. So we actually have to eat these to be able to get them because our bodies cannot make them on our own. And we eat them anytime we eat certain foods. What sources can humans find amino acids listed above? So those 9 essential amino acids we can get from eating meat, drinking milk, eating fish, and eggs. In what order does your body prefer to burn macronutrients? So it is going to burn carbohydrates first, then it's going to burn fat, then it's going to burn protein. So again, if you're wanting to lose weight, then you need to eat fewer carbs. That way it can kind of skip that first step and move into burning fats. And that's when you would lose body fat. If you're wanting to gain weight, then you need to eat more carbs. That way it is not going to burn the fat and the proteins, but it's going to burn the carbs that you're eating. So it depends on what the goal is. But your body burns these three things in that order: carbs, fats, proteins. What happens if you consume more carbohydrates than you need? Then those carbohydrates, unfortunately, they turn to body fat, or also known as lipid. Number 22, what happens if you eat too much protein? So a lot of people that are really into fitness assume that the more protein you eat, the better. But it's still really important to have a balanced diet, because if you eat too much protein, then that protein can still get converted to carbs and fat. So then what's the point? So then you need to eat a mixture of carbs, fat, and protein to be really healthy. Number 23, what are the nutrients necessary for a healthy life, but not used for energy? So that is micronutrients. So that is the vitamins and the minerals. I'm just going to write that to the side here. Vitamin and minerals are the micronutrients, so they are very small. Number 24, what are some examples of endothermic and what are some of ectothermic? So remember, endothermic is going to be things that are warm-blooded, that can control its internal temperature. So I put us, humans, we are endothermic. Ectothermic is the opposite. Ectothermic does not have the ability to control their internal temperatures. So when it is cold outside, it is cold inside of their bodies. When it's hot outside, it's hot inside of their bodies. So reptiles are all ectothermic organisms. So they do not have the ability to control their temperatures. Number 25, what type of animal has a higher BMR? Endothermic or ectothermic? So endothermic, that special ability we have to control our temperature, actually requires a little bit more energy. So because we are working, which means burning energy, to regulate our body temperature, we require a higher BMR, which means basal metabolic rate. So we are requiring more energy just for plain survival than the ectothermic is. And that's another reason why ectothermic organisms are really good at hibernating, because they don't require as much energy, so they are able to fall into a deep sleep and still survive. 26, which type of animal cannot be active on a very cold day? Endothermic or ectothermic? Ectothermic, because remember, these are cold-blooded animals. So when it's cold outside, their bodies are cold. And if it gets too cold, then it can kill them. So ectothermics cannot be very active on a cold day. They have to bury themselves in the ground and stay super warm. 27, what do calories measure? Remember, calories is just a unit of energy. 28, what percentage of your daily recommended value of calories should come from carbohydrates? So this was not on your notes, but it's 45 to 65% needs to be carbohydrates. Number 29, what two factors affect the individual's metabolic rate? So this would be the activity level. So are you active? Do you work out? Do you run? Do you participate in recess or PE? So that's your activity level, is how active you are in a day. And then your BMR, which is just the basic energy level that you need to survive. So even if you slept all day long, your body is still using energy to keep you alive. So those two factors together, if you are active and you are surviving, then both of those activities require energy. So that is your total metabolic rate. Number 30, be able to determine various caloric and energy differences between age and gender is noted on the chart on page 309. So if you will turn to page 309 with me, then this will make more sense. And you can pause this as you get your science book out if you'd like. I'm also going to get my science book out so I can show you. Okay, so I'm on this page and I'm looking at the chart down here. So it says males require 2,000 calories a day if they are young, and if they're older, then they require 2,300 calories a day. Females, okay, again, require 2,000 when they're young, and when they're older, they require 1,900 calories a day. And part of that is because females are, of course, a little bit smaller in stature, and we are really good at holding on to our fat, unfortunately. So we require less calories than a typical male would require. So the question right here, younger ages also require more energy. Males also require more energy. So in general, I'm on 31 now, in general, do males or females require less energy? Females require less energy, which means less calories. Okay, so just be able to point out the patterns of that picture. Number 32, when normalized by weight, which has a higher BMR? An elephant, a horse, a human, a dog, or a rabbit? So this is what I was talking about on one of your note videos. So an elephant, we assume, is going to eat tons of food daily. We assume that a rabbit is just going to graze on grass daily. So the elephant is eating more food than the rabbit, obviously. But when it is compared to their body weight, the rabbit is actually eating more food compared to its body weight than the elephant. The elephant, yes, it's eating a lot of food, but it's eating less food compared to its body weight. So remember, it's a division problem. So you would take the weight of food that an animal is eating and divide it by the animal's weight to get the normalization number. Number 33, be familiar with the process of combustion in a monosaccharide. What are the three parts of this process? Be able to describe what happens in each step. Where does the combustion of food occur? So I put just briefly an answer to those three questions there. So glycolysis is the first step. Krebs cycle is the second step. Electron transport system is the third step. And where does all this take place? It takes place in the mitochondria. A good thing to study would be, I believe it's figure 12.6, I believe, on page 313 of your textbook. And this page is also in your notes. I copied a picture of it for you. So definitely know the details of that picture. 34, what is the mitochondrion? It is the powerhouse of the cell. So mitochondrion is the same thing as a mitochondria. Mitochondria is one, mitochondrion is several. 35, what is the mitochondrion considered the powerhouse of the cell? So why is it considered that? Well, it holds all the cell's energy. And it's also where combustion takes place, which is where energy is formed. So it is the powerhouse. And in 36 and 37, please study those two pictures. This one is in your notes, 12.6. This one is not in your notes, but this one is based on the monosaccharide, disaccharide, and polysaccharide. It just shows you a picture of what each of them would look like, and the size differences. So please study those two pictures. Know the combustion picture, which is the same, of course. And again, just watch this video at your own pace, and you can use this on your test as well. So have a great day, guys.